This is Alyssa. I called from, or I emailed you about the Road Trip Nation, the interview.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
With me are my two friends, Sabrina and Leticia.
Hi.
Hello. And before we start, I just wanted to say thank you again for making time in your schedule. I know that you're really busy, and this is really something that we need to help us find out what we want to be for the rest of our lives, basically.
Okay, happy to help.
So to start us off, where were you when you were our age, like starting as a junior in high school?
Oh, Jesus. You guys are like juniors in high school? Well, you're babies. You mean like where was I, like location-wise, or?
Kind of like where were you with, where you, like, how do I, what were you thinking, like what you wanted to be, and what kind of classes were you taking and stuff like that?
Okay. So, high school, I was taking all your regular classes, except I took all the the honors science classes. That's just purely because I just like science and was good at it. By junior in high school, I knew I wanted to go to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo for my undergraduate. And I knew I wanted to go into the kinesiology major because I wanted to get more education and a degree in a field that would cater to therapy. I was one of the lucky ones early on who figured out what I wanted to do really early, so I knew, by that point that I wanted to go into the field of rehab.
Okay, what were your interests in high school?
Interests in high school. I was the captain of the girls' tennis team for 3 years. And then in high school, mostly I just, I attended classes, I did the whole social thing with my friends, did all the typical going to sporting events with my friends and things like that. I also rode horses, kind of outside of school as an extracurricular. But yeah, that was pretty much my life in high school. And my friends in school.
How did you find out about this career?
Like I said, I figured out what I wanted to do fairly early in life. I was very lucky or fortunate in that sense. So growing up, I lived with my mom and my grandma in the same house. And when I was a freshman in high school, my grandmother had a stroke, pretty severe, and her prognosis was not good. The doctors did not give us much hope, but we brought her home and got her intensive in-home therapy, speech, PT, OT. And the OT also happened to be a good family friend of ours. So living in that house, becoming one of the main caretakers for my grandma, and being friends with the OT, I was able to talk to her and really just kind of see how she worked with my grandma and talk to her about his OT in general. And my grandma is still around to this day, so I attribute a lot of that to the therapy that she got. And also my grandma's just a fighter. But I attribute that a lot to the therapist working with my grandma and my family and training us and giving my grandma her independence back to a degree. And so with that, that's when I figured out that I wanted to, one, I heard about OT, and two, I wanted to go into it as a career.
So what was some of, like, the noise that you heard along your road? Noise being things like people telling you, like, people discouraging you, maybe even yourself discouraging you and kind of self-doubting yourself.
The only noise that I ever got there's a great need for that as well. So not too much noise, just a little bit here and there.
And can you just suggest some ways we can obtain this necessary experience?
I would make sure that you go to a four-year college that either has an undergrad occupational therapy program, but that's not needed. You don't have to have an undergrad in OT to get your master's in OT. You can have an undergrad in any field and go into occupational therapy. It's one of the nice things about OT is that it really embraces a whole bunch of diversity and skill sets. So really, I would just recommend that you go to an undergrad school and you choose a field that you are passionate about and you do well in your undergrad career. But also, if you're going to pursue occupational therapy while you're still in undergrad, making sure you get your prerequisites done while you're in your undergraduate courses. Talking to your counselor, having them help you set up your course career to make sure that you get your prereqs done so that you're not too delayed in getting your prerequisites and you have to stay in school longer, although that's really not a bad thing. Many of my classmates had gone to undergrad, started their career in something else, and then decided they wanted to go to OT, and then went back to school to get their prerequisites, and then went to grad school. There's nothing wrong with that. I was just one of the ones that went from undergrad to grad within 6 months. But again, I was lucky enough to have that trajectory and know what I wanted. So really just with whatever undergraduate school you go to, take a degree that you're passionate about and that you can see really helping you in your life or in any aspect. Passion is key. And then just make sure you get your prereqs done if you want to pursue OT.
How well did your college experience prepare you for your career?
Sorry, can you say that again?
How well did your college experience prepare you for your career?
You talking undergrad or grad?
Undergrad.
Undergrad. It prepared me. I mean, I didn't do really any OT work or anything like that at my undergraduate school. I was a kinesiology major, and I tailored my courses to help me meet the prereqs for my graduate applications. But, I mean, I was a very active member in some of the clubs at my grad school. I, did volunteer work actually for California Children's Services with the OT there and got exposure there, but that's also just because you need to get volunteer hours for your applications for grad school. And then I was also, like I said, I was a kinesiology major, so I already had a lot of background in anatomy and physiology and just kind of like the human body and rehabilitation and, special needs and stuff. So my undergrad career, I thought, really did help prepare me for my graduate school. But again, that's just because I was already pursuing a degree that kind of worked itself into that. I also minored in child development because I knew I always wanted to work with kids. So I kind of already had that plan of what I wanted to specialize in to help with me getting OT. But again, I want to say that you don't have to do that. I have had, like I said, I had classmates in my graduate program who were business majors or who were engineers, and then they decided to go into therapy, so it was the first time they were hearing about stuff. So you don't have to have that, real in-depth background to do well in OT. You just have to have the passion and the drive for it.
What are some typical entry-level job titles and functions?
So as an entry-level you're done with your schooling and you complete what are called your field work, or basically your internships, you're required to do a level 1 field work and level 2 field work. Level 1 is two-week internships, essentially, and then level 2 is 2 3-month internships. Once you finish those and you sit for your national board and you take your test and you pass your entry-level job, you're able to go right in and do anything really an OT can do. You can treat, you can do evaluations, you can do assessments, you can do parent and client training, you can work with, adaptive equipment, you can do any of it. I will say even though you've gone through all of your training and all of your schooling and testing, you still feel like you don't know anything your first couple years. And so when you find your first job, I would recommend that you find a job where you will have a really good supervisor and someone that you can go and talk to and brainstorm with and ask questions to, because you're still going to be very green when you start your career, but you can do really anything that any OT can do. And your job title is you're just an occupational therapist. And then in whatever field or whatever department or setting that you choose to get a job in.
What places would you have an internship? Would it just be at an OT place, or is there other places like hospitals or something like that?
Yeah, so you can get an internship, and the internships for the fieldwork are set up through your schools, or your school. They find the place for you, and then they send you there. But your fieldwork, one of them has to be in a physical disability department, and so that's typically a rehab department in a hospital or in a post-acute or skilled nursing facility, a SNF, in one of those settings. So working with really just physical disabilities, spinal cord injuries, traumatic brain injuries, strokes, heart attacks, broken bones, just any kind of rehab from that, Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, anything like that. That's typically what they call FISDIS. So you have to have one field work in that, and then your second one can be, typically it's people do it in mental health, so going and finding a place in a psychiatric unit, whether it's in a hospital or in an acute psychiatric ward or in an Alzheimer's daycare facility or something like that, or get one in pediatrics. I chose, my two were in the acute rehab at UC Davis Medical Hospital, so I did 3 months there in their acute department. And then I did 3 months in pediatrics, and I wanted the pediatrics because I knew that I wanted to go into pediatrics eventually.
Okay, and what is your typical work routine?
So at our clinic, we actually see children we see children 0 to 21 years old. That's our age range. And we're a private clinic, so there's only a few of us, and our sessions are a one-on-one setting. And so our clinic also sees children in a variety of different settings. We see them in school, when school is in session. We see them in their home, because we're contracted with Kaiser and with California also Regional Center, so that's in-home services. And then we also see them in our private clinic. So my typical day really just kind of depends on what day you're talking about. If it's a day where I'm at the clinic, I go into work. I have already a preset schedule. I have kids that come in at the same time every week. and they come into the clinic. I work with them and their families for an hour. The parents are usually present because I find parent education to be a big component and very important in therapy. They come in, I work with them, and when you work with kids in OT, it really just kind of looks more like playing. And they come in for an hour, and then they leave, and then I will either have another kid right after them, or I will have time to do reports or paperwork or more administrative type things. And then if it's a day where I'm going into people's homes, like actually today, I leave from my house and I drive to the client's home. I get there and I see the child for an hour in their home, and then I leave. And then if it's in school, we are based in, we have several contracts with several different school districts, but our main school district is the West Sacramento School District over in Yolo County, so over in West Sacramento, Washington Unified School District. And I work mostly with the preschoolers over there, so we have our own OT gym at the preschool. And so there, when I work with the kids when they're in school, I'll go over to the preschool, over to our office, and I will either pull kids from class, so that means take them out of their classroom and bring them to our gym and work with them for a half an hour, or I will do what's called push-in, and that means I will work with them inside their classroom during their typical classroom routine for a half an hour. And that really just kind of depends on what's going on that day and the kid and where they are in their skill set and what would be most beneficial for them. But those are typical days depending on what setting I'm working in on that day.
Are there any kind of problems you deal with?
Problems like what?
Like if your patients are in like a bad mood and like they don't want to do anything that day.
Oh yes, you get that all the time. That is a given. Adults often don't want to do anything, especially older adults, but mostly because they're just tired and they're in pain. So you can get some very stubborn and obstinate and sometimes just, upset adults with kids. I mean, they're kids, they're children with special needs. And so with children, you are always working with behaviors. Tantrums, crying, screaming, kicking, hitting, typical childlike behaviors are a part of the typical routine. It doesn't happen all the time, but you definitely do encounter it, and you just have to learn how to handle that and what you're comfortable with and kind of what the protocol is with the departments that you're working at, depending on the severity of the tantrum or the behavior.
What kind of decisions do you make on a daily basis?
I am pretty much in charge of my whole routine and clientele. I'm in charge of my schedule. I am in charge of if I, choosing assessments, if I need to do assessments. I'm in charge of formulating treatment plans and and establishing goals and writing my own reports and making sure everything is done on time and things like that. I'm pretty much in charge or make my own decisions with everything. My boss, she is there to supervise and to either if I have questions if needed, but mostly she's giving me all the power to make all the decisions on my own.
How do you use time? How does your time use vary? Are there busy and slow times, or is work activity fairly constant?
I'm sorry, what about time?
Does time vary? Like, are you always busy, or are there slow times?
Summer is slower for us. this summer is not slower because my boss is going on maternity leave, so we're busy trying to get things prepared for that. But summer tends to be slower because I told you we contract with school districts, and so we see kids through the school system. And so when school is out of session, we don't see all of the kids. So during the summer, our caseload will drop to about half, typically. So during the summer, we do tend to get a little bit slower, which is nice to have a little bit of a break. And then when school starts again during the school year, that's when we tend to be really busy, especially at the beginning of the school year, and then when we get back from winter break until the end of the school year is our busy season. So yeah, it fluctuates a little bit, but we tend to always we find stuff to do all the time. That's never a problem.
What do you like and dislike about your line of work?
I like everything about it. Like I still have yet to dread going to work. And so that's a blessing. That's something I know not everybody can say. There are certain clients or their parents that sometimes I dread seeing, but I have yet to dread actually going to work. The thing that I would say is the hardest, or that I don't like, but again, it's just it's just part of the job, is that with these kids is that you will sometimes encounter very difficult parents, and it's usually the parents that make the job harder, not usually the kids, it's usually the parents. So if there was anything I didn't like about that, it would be the occasional parents that I have that make it harder. But the majority of my caseload, the parents are all very nice, and they're all usually very receptive to therapy and to my professional opinion and rationale. It's only a few here and there that make things harder than what they need to be.
Is there flexibility in things like dress code and work hours and place of residence?
Yeah, like I said, I'm in charge of my schedule. But part of that is because the clinic that I work at, we are a private clinic. There's only 3 of us therapists. And my boss is a very flexible person. She believes in a balanced lifestyle. So, if I need to take a time off to go to a doctor's appointment or something like that, I can do that. I just have to let her know. And then I also have to I'm the one in charge of canceling my kids that day if I have to cancel kids, and then making it up if I need to make up the sessions. Dress code with her is also very flexible. We will wear anything from yoga pants or sweatpants because we're on the floor most of the time with kids, so you want to wear clothes that are easy to move around in and that are wash and wear. You don't want to wear nice fancy clothes. Barefoot almost all the time because we're on mats and things like that. So walk in and flip-flops, take off my shoes, and I'm barefoot the rest of the day. But, so we'll wear anything from really casual, comfy clothes to I also wear, dress slacks and things like that. But again, it's really whatever we feel comfortable in, whatever we can move around in. I will sometimes look a little bit nicer if I have to do meetings and stuff, and I want to look a little bit more professional for parents. But typically, it's just whatever is comfortable and weather like this, whatever is the coolest for today.
How long have you been working at the company you are working for now? And was it the first place that you were hired for this occupation?
Yes, this is my first job. And actually, she was also I worked with her as an intern. So that field work that I was talking to you about previously, she was my placement for 3 months. So I worked with her for 3 months through my internship, and at the end of my internship, she asked to hire me on. So she was my first job. And I've been working with her for, if you Um, I've been working with her for about, like, officially about a year and a half. So I'm still pretty new to the field. If you count the internship, it's been 2 years.
If your work was suddenly eliminated, what kind of work would you feel prepared to do?
If what was eliminated?
Your work was suddenly eliminated. What kind of work would you feel prepared to do?
Like, if there was, like, no OT anywhere?
Yeah.
I would probably go into teaching. Working at a preschool or at a daycare with kids is probably what I would do. Or doing, setting up a business to do after-school programs, or, I told you I also horseback ride, so doing some kind of therapeutic riding with disabilities is probably something I would pursue.
What personal skills or abilities do you believe contribute most to success in this line of work?
Well, I told you before, you gotta be passionate about it. There's no two ways about it. When you're doing therapy, you get very up close and personal with your clients, whether they're adults or children. And so being passionate and really having that empathy is key. With kids, you really have to like working with kids. Some people are naturally good with kids, and that helps. Some people like kids, so they have to work with it. That's fine. But if you go into pediatrics and you don't really like kids, you're not going to really like the field. Time management is huge. Being confident in your skill set and being okay with talking to parents and kind of almost telling them how to parent every once in a while is also a very good skill. But I would really just say being passionate, being empathetic, knowing how to relate to your clients, or at least just be there and meet them at their level are the biggest skills. If you have those characteristics, then you can learn all the other stuff that you need. But those ones, I think, are the hardest to learn if they're not already innate in your personality.
Okay, and how much of a demand is there for people in this occupation? Like, how rapidly is the field growing, if at all?
Oh, it's growing every day. I still get calls from recruiters all the time asking if I'm available to come and work for their company. Like I said before, if someone hears in the field that you're an OT, they're almost like, oh, do you need a job? So if you're not picky about what setting you work in or the population that you work with, it's very easy to find a job really quickly.
What are the salary ranges for various levels in this field? Is there a salary ceiling?
So that varies, and to be honest, I am not the most up-to-date on what the current one is. If you work in a hospital or in a skilled nursing facility, you will get paid more than if you work in a private or post-acute company. And then if you work with pediatrics in a school, that's the lowest paying. So again, if you work with kids, you really need to be passionate about it because it's going to be the lowest salary out there for OT. But in terms of the actual numbers, I'm not exactly sure what it is right now. It also varies on the city and the state that you're working in. Like if you work in San Francisco, you're going to get paid more than what you work if you work here in Sacramento. But again, it really just kind of varies on the setting and the location and where you are. So in terms of actual numbers, I can't help you, but that's the best that I can do. If you Google OT salaries and stuff, a whole bunch of information will come up.
Okay. If you could do things all over again, would you choose the same path for yourself? Why?
Yes.
Why?
There's no doubt in my mind that I am not in the correct field for myself. I would choose the same grad school again. I went to Samuel Merritt University in Oakland for my OT graduate degree, and it's a small private school, so it costs a lot, but I really enjoyed the professors that I had there. I thought the education that I got and the experience that I got through them was great. And so even though it cost a lot more than going to like San Jose State for their graduate department, I'm very happy with the trajectory that my schooling and my career went, and I wouldn't do it differently at all.
So to wrap things up, again, thank you, but in the program Roadtrip Nation, they have this kind of signature bright green RV that when they go and travel places and have people and interview people, they then have the people they interview come inside and like sign a piece of advice or insight inside the RV. Since we obviously don't have one, what kind of insight or advice that we could look for inspiration, what would you write inside our hypothetical RV?
That's a good question. I guess kind of what I've been saying all along is just be passionate about what you do. And if it's a passion of yours, don't give up on pursuing it. If you want it, go get it. Don't let anybody discourage you.
Okay. Well, again, thank you very much for interviewing us. Or not interviewing us, but having us interview you.
No problem.
So, I hope you have a good day.
Okay, good luck to you guys.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Bye.